let's kick us off. I hope you had a nice 1.5 hours long or 1 hour long little idea forum. That was the second one for today. You have still one to go. So we hope that this session here, this short 1 hour 10 minutes, will help you to engage a bit more interactively, because this is the purpose of these action labs here, where we are today. So basically, the topic we're going to discuss is coupling technology and innovation with sustainable development. And basically, what we are doing now is following up on the first session. Regardless of the topic you were in, you all discussed through the same methodology. And we're just going to follow up on that and work dive deeper into it. So basically, the questions that we want to answer today with our distinguished guests I'm going to invite here on the stage is: what innovative breakthrough solutions can life economy provide? So first we looked at what is existing in our context, what is life economy in general, and then now we want to find the breakthrough solutions that it can provide for your own context in this topic. And the second question we're going to explore is what actions are needed to harness the full potential of the life economy to drive these solutions. The way we're going to do that is that we have some prompts and nice guests who will share a few insights from their own context. We're going to listen to those, and then we're going to go into just a short group discussion of 5 people, not more. You will have the chance to discuss with each other the topic in more details in your own context. Then we're going to come back and we're going to share together in the plenary what your insights were and what your key outputs are. So basically, taking no more time for myself, I want to introduce our guests and ask them all to come to the stage. So I would like to invite Dr. Nagesh Kumar to join me, Dr. KJ Joseph to join me, Dr. Kangaza Bapati to join me, Dr. Pankaj Vashist to join me, and Dr. Rajat Katuria to join me on the stage. And big applause for them. Please. Thank you. So we asked each of the guests to share their perspective and their experience on the topic of how you can basically use technology and use it in an innovative way that supports sustainable development and helps to live a more sustainable life. Our first guests who will share their initial insights are Dr. Nagesh Kumar. So I would like to ask him to share, to give his input as a kick-off of. Yeah.
From here?
Yeah, I think that works. I hope that works.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Let me begin by thanking the organizers, RIS and so many other organizations which are involved in organizing this very important discussion on life economy. And I think science and technology, the technology in all different forms and all different sectors is going to be very critical if we are to achieve the goals of sustainable development in general and lifestyle for environment in particular. And so my mind, works on how do we really get there. It is beyond discussion and doubt that technology can play a very important role in achieving the goals and objectives of sustainable development in all different sectors. And India's experience with the digital public infrastructure is very, very fascinating. How, in the times of the pandemic, we could reach the public services to people through the digital public infrastructure. And the fact that India is willing to share that experience, that valuable development experience with other developing countries. This is something which Prime Minister Modi offered at G20 summit recently. And the institutions and institutional architecture is being created to facilitate that sharing of knowledge and experience. But what about the all other technologies, So the digital public infrastructure, India's experience would become available, hopefully, and capacity building and all that is needed will be provided for. But what about all other technologies? For instance, the phasing out of coal will not happen easily, even though we may advance and accelerate transition towards renewable energy because of the cost and the speed needed and all that. So for next decade or more, we will be still using the coal-based energy generation. And there are technologies available for carbon capture, storage, utilization, etc., and also very hyper, critical reactors and all. But the access to those technologies on easy, accessible, affordable terms, whether it is happening or not, that is a question to my mind which is very critical and which needs to be answered. This is something which was provided for in the Agenda 2030 and then repeated in every single forum which happened, Paris conference and all others. But you see very little movement. Now, there are some models for providing access, facilitating access. For instance, my mind goes to this TRIPS and public health kind of framework, which was created in 2003 when African countries demanded that the patents applicable to those life-saving drugs be put aside. And international community rose to the occasion. And there was this agreement on TRIPS and public health, which facilitated Indian companies to supply HIV, AIDS drugs to African countries at 1/100th or 1,000th of the price, a fraction of the price of what multinational companies, drug companies were charging them. Now, similar kind of approach for climate-sensitive technologies, lifestyle-sensitive technologies, which will facilitate greater use of recycling of carbon, for instance, whether that is going to happen, whether we can have a peace clause on TRIPS for environmental issues. And by the way, TRIPS agreement, when it was drafted, there was a clause inserted to facilitate transfer of technology. It is Article 66.2, if I am not mistaken. But it was left as a best endeavor clause, and never was any attempt to define how and what mechanisms will be there for facilitating transfer of technology. The time has come to give meaning to Article 66.2 of TRIPS agreement, at least for environmentally sensitive technologies. So I was told to just be limiting my remarks to 3-4 minutes. I suppose before I'm warned, I think I should wrap up. So my feeling is that the discussion about importance and criticality of technology is very much received wisdom. It is very clearly demonstrated in different times, especially in the aftermath of COVID pandemic. Now the need is to provide for mechanisms to enhance and ease the access of developing countries for using these technologies which are available. So I'll stop here. Thank you, and maybe I can come back in the discussion.
Exactly. Thank you very much for your insights, and I invite you all in the audience to start thinking about and harness and harvest the solutions that are mentioned here, to follow up with it later during the group discussion. So the next person I would like to invite on to share remarks are Dr. KJ Joseph.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, respected Professor
Nagesh Kumar, one of my mentors, with whom I had the privilege of working 20 years ago. And my wonderful friend, Professor Rajat, and fellow panelists and distinguished delegates. When I was invited, being a professor, I thought I would be having 15 minutes to speak, and I have prepared 8 slides. I now realize that this is a new innovation has come. So I am basically an innovation scholar, and I represent. I am the Secretary General of GlobalX, which articulated the concept of innovation system. So what I am going to speak now, because I have some thoughts I just share with you. So what essentially I'm trying home, I also edit a journal called Innovation and Development. So I breathe only innovation, that's my problem. But if it doesn't make sense, it is your problem because you have not had your coffee in the afternoon. You are sleepy, that's the problem. Okay, now what I'm going to say here is that we believe that innovation, the development, which is the progeny of the innovation system that exists. Because it is, okay, Professor cannot repeat that, it's very clear. And this innovation is quintessentially a process of knowledge generation and learning process through the different actors. Actors vary across different contexts. And when you are talking about the knowledge, one can think in terms of scientific knowledge, which comes out of the STI mode of innovation, science, technology, innovation, basically what Professor Nagesh talked about, R&D, we're talking about patenting, technology transfer, these are all scientific mode, and they're documented. And in fact, this is precisely what contributed, as far as we are aware today, to the immense prosperity of the human society that we live in. They contributed. STI mode of learning, and that has contributed. And at the same time, we know that this particular mode of learning that also contributed to the so-called climate catastrophe. I don't want to say change, it's like a climate catastrophe. And unacceptable social processes. Because the whole thing which we are talking about, promoting science, STI mode of learning through science policy resolution, science and technology policies, the TRIPS. In fact, the whole globalization which we articulated was actually with a view to facilitate that. I would like to argue, I don't have the time to do that. Now, when this particular juncture, we are deliberating on the limits which we have already articulated, and when we are articulating the relevance of life, I would like to recall to you that innovation scholars have responded to the unsustainable question through sustainability-oriented innovation system, inclusive innovation system, responsible innovation system, now it's transformative innovation system. But I would like to argue that if you put India's response, which was first manifested in Glasgow, presented in Glasgow, and now in G20, life economy, or I would like to articulate what is needed is a life-oriented innovation system. That is the solution that actually one can do about it. This is precisely what essentially life-oriented innovation essentially means. In contrast to the STI mode of learning, what actually we are actually giving emphasis on the users, which I would like to say what is called UDI mode of learning. What is called using, doing, and interacting. And that kind of an interactive process, whom are you talking, who's using you are talking about? All users. I was talking, it can be farmers, it can be students, it can be universities. There is hardly anyone who will be left behind from this UDI. And this UDI will be articulating an altogether new demand structure which will induce the STI mode. And that STI mode, in turn, will generate, this is the only way you can go about in addressing this problem. Now, what is the action point? When you are talking about life-oriented innovation system, that shall not be construed as something which is not, because they are the people who consuming or creating. No, in fact, it is equally important to Global South as well. You ask a farmer, can you make a behavioral change in your farming, the way in which you do fertilizer, the way in which you plow, which is more environmentally friendly? And nudge him to do that. I am sure in the south also there is enormous opportunity. Say morning, our colleague was talking about the AC use. When I go to my office, instead of 22, if I do 3 days, 25, what is the impact that change? The point which I got first is it cannot be considered as a north. In fact, to the extent that we in India, we are put to the hilt. Okay, Nanda, I was referring to your remark in the morning AC. Okay, Dr. Nanda. Now, the point which I am trying to say here is that in a developing country like India, which has got so much 5,700 coastal line, seawater rise will be adversely affecting us. Number of Himalayan rivers, which will be adversely affecting us. If also monsoon dependent agriculture, we are going to be the most badly affected by these kind of change. And yesterday, the space which is left for us is limited. So what I'm trying to say that it cannot be considered something which is others. It is actually our own. Now, what is important is to locate the actors with their all. Now, what is the existing institutional architecture in which the interactive learning of these actors actually currently taking place? We have to locate that. My institutional architecture essentially means Douglas North rules, laws, norms, practices, etc., etc. Now, coming to means of nudging the behavior and appropriate indicators, which in fact our Club from speaker was actually referring to this, developing appropriate indicators. And in fact, along with that process, what is more equally important is creating what is called capacity building process. And whole lot of process which when we, these are things which what actually one need to be doing. Now, in fact, I thought of, I was, last point is action point, Dr. Nagesh reminded us about the COWIN, the digital public good. Based on this database, which could be high frequency database, one could from the south develop a kind of a digital public good which articulates the behavior changes and its impact in on a what is called as a online database. And this can be in fact shared with other countries. And in fact that could be in a modern economy where modern society where knowledge is the key resource. Such knowledge should be shared by India with the South, and that should be, India should be known for building bridges and roads in knowledge. And that is what is going, which in turn fosters a life-oriented innovation system, which in turn influence the STA mode of learning and the desired changes. I think I will stop here. Thank you very much. I think this is, I have to tell it.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks for sharing, and I hope you can join our group discussions to expand more on your presentation. Next up is Dr. P. Kangasabapati. I would like to invite you to share your initial remarks with us.
Thank you. I'll directly go to the challenges.
Perfect.
Challenges, first challenge we all know that the innovative breakthrough solutions can be, what innovative breakthrough solutions can the life economy provide? Of course, we all know it's people-centric, cheap, environment-friendly and all. For example, if we properly develop technologies for the usage of solar energy, it will be easily available to all, very cheap. Second challenge is actions needed to harness full potential of life economy to drive solutions. Of course, we have to constantly take steps to learn the best practices from around the world and engage in developing new technologies and newer innovations. In this connection, India has many lessons to offer. Some of us are engaged in taking up field studies in the last 30 years. So again, that background, I can offer 2-3 important points. One, if we study the past, Professor was just mentioning about agriculture. We all know how Indians have been cultivating in the same land for thousands of years without any break. It is largely because of organic farming. So the past history of India has many lessons to offer. We all know that India remained as the most sustainable economic power. We have data for the last 2000 years. During the last 2 millennia, at least for 17 centuries, we remained as the top power. This is one. Even if we take the contemporary systems, we can learn many things. If we take, for example, finance, which is a subject here, um, when we go and see at the field level in different parts of the country, our local societies have created their own financing mechanisms. In different parts of the society, it is different. Based on the strength and weaknesses of the local societies, they create mechanisms, and as a result of which, India is developing. In fact, the last 75 years of development is largely due to the involvement of initiatives of the local societies. I remember how in southern Tamil Nadu, very backward community, today has become one of the most enterprising community because they developed a system called Mahamai. They contributed their own funds and then they distributed it to whoever wanted to engage in entrepreneurship. Like this, there are several systems. In this connection, World Bank in 2002 or 2001, in their World Development Report, they have mentioned as to how Tirupur, which is one of the best hosiery exporting centers of India, has developed. Tirupur, the report says, makes the cheapest product in the world because they are able to mobilize funds at the lowest cost. Why? India is a relationship-based society, so due to the availability of enormous social capital that we have, entrepreneurs mobilize funds through connections. So we have lessons to learn. This morning, one of the speakers was mentioning about the role of trust and faith-based systems. Of course, in the West, it's largely disturbed and to an extent destroyed. We know Robert Putnam in his book Bowling Alone shows how during the last 50, 60 years, these social connections have been destroyed as a result of individualism. Francis Fukuyama in his book Trust says, trust can be destroyed easily, but it cannot be built. As far as India is concerned, we have layers and layers, families, societies, our own culture driving it. So as a result of which we have enormous strengths as a nation, and we have to build upon it. When we go across to different parts of the country for cluster studies, we have observed that in several clusters, several innovations, technological developments are taking place at very cheap cost. Mashelkar and Prahalad in their study, which was published in Harvard Business Review in 2001, has mentioned as to how innovations are taking place at cheapest cost in India, through which we can make mass-based products. They call it as Gandhian innovations. So several innovations are happening even today, continuously have been happening. Some of the people like Professor Anil Gupta, they are documenting some of them at the field level. So as far as the actions needed are concerned, in my opinion, two important actions are needed. One, we have to take up studies at the field level and find out the functioning realities, what we call functioning realities. In fact, universities and colleges should become facilitators, intermediaries between the societies and the policymakers. We have several lessons to learn from India because India even today continues to remain as the vibrant society. And it is the societies that are driving the technology and innovations. For a long time, we have, we no longer study economics. We see it as something different from our families, culture, and societies. No, it is not true. It's a combination. If you take technology and innovation, they are products of the functioning societies. Economics is the product of the Indian families, Indian societies, Indian culture. Our civilization with thousands of years of history and tradition can give plenty of lessons to us in this connection. And as far as technology development and innovation is concerned, we have to connect people like us with the local societies and make what we call appropriate technologies. In fact, there are thousands of appropriate technologies already functioning. A few years back, Department of Science and Technology had mentioned 30% of the innovations in India take place in upcountry centers, largely through what we call formally illiterates. So Indians by nature are largely innovative. This we have seen in different places. In my opinion, I think this is a very important point that we have to take into account when we couple this technology and innovation with sustainable development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thanks for summarizing them into practical actions. The next speaker I would like to invite to share is Dr. Pankaj Vashish. Thank you for being here, and please share with us what you would like to.
Thank you. Thank you, and it's a great honor to share dais with stalwart, to whom I have always look up and learn a lot, including Rajat sir is there, Nagesh sir is there, and it's a bit challenging to share dais because I'm wondering what to add to what already these people have spoken and what Rajat sir is going to speak. But let me add my 2 cents. So we are here to discuss how to couple technology with technological innovation with sustainable development. So what is sustainable development? We know that sustainable development is a multi-dimensional concept. It has economic dimension, social dimension, as well as environmental dimension. So in simple word, sustainability requires development which is environment friendly as well as socially inclusive. Now, Nagesh sir has already mentioned that technology has a critical role to play when it comes to the realization of social development goal. And rightly so, because the recent technology, including artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things, quantum computing, they are offering us several opportunities in 3 ways. One, it is allowing us to get rid of several traditional non-sustainable practices. I can give you a very simple example of paper-based signature. So if we simply replace it with digital signature, we can get rid of a lot. It can be much more environment friendly. Second, we all know about the optimization of resources. So by using data and automation, we can optimize our production process and service delivery, and in that way we can reap a lot of advantage. And third is basically redesigning our business model by using technologies. So simple example is like edutech we have. So by using technology, now we can reach to people who didn't have access to the education system. Similarly, telemedicine is another way. Then we have this cab aggregation platforms. So by these 3 ways, technology can help us to achieve sustainable development goal. But we should be very careful because technology is a double-edged sword. It is offering a lot of benefits, but at the same time, its impact can also be very counterproductive when it comes to the sustainability. Simply in terms of environmental sustainability, we know that over the last few decades, due to the growing diffusion of technology and digitalization of society, we have seen massive increase in penetration of mobile phone, laptop, and now increasingly the number of data centers is growing up. And these things have actually increased the energy demand. So that is the kind of negative impact of technology. And similarly, we have increasing problem of e-waste. So these problems are also the byproduct of technology. Second, on the social aspect, we know that technology has the potential to benefit only those which have the required capacity and skill to gain from technology. And we have to be mindful that there is a large number of people and section of the societies which do not have those kind of skills. So in that setting, if we don't take corrective measure, we can see a lot of increase in inequality and disparity, which will be counterproductive for the sustainable development. Now, so that's why we need a lot of efforts to make sure that we try to maximize the benefits from technology for sustainable development while minimizing its negative implications. So to me, I think I won't repeat what Nagesh sir has mentioned in terms of sharing the technology between this north-south divide and everything. I won't repeat that. I will only highlight. I would like to highlight 3 or 4 points. One is about the data. Now, data is central. If we want technology to be used for some innovative solution for anything, for that we need data. But unfortunately, data for everything is not required, not available. So I can give you one example. We know that the industrial emission contributes to a large amount of greenhouse emission. And at the same time, artificial intelligence can help there. We can use artificial intelligence to design more innovative solutions to minimize the industrial pollution, industrial emission. But unfortunately, in several countries, including India, we don't. Data on industrial emission is not publicly available. So first and foremost, I feel that we should make efforts to make the critical data available to the innovators. Then second issue is about the capital. Here I'm not talking about the international capital, but we know that the startups are at the forefront of providing innovative solutions. And in India, we have right now more than 100,000, we have, just a second, startups, but only 2% of these startups are involved in environment-friendly, innovative solutions. Why? Because they don't have access to the finance. The venture capitalists are simply not interested in providing the finance to these startups, mainly because the risk is high and the gestation period is also high. Third, the issue is of digital divide. Now, the digital divide exists at all levels. We have digital divide, regional digital divide, then there is a divide between large firm and medium firm, and these divides are not a good thing when it comes to the technology and how technology is going to impact the development in years to come. I can give you the example of just one example from the business sector. The MSME sector, we know that the development of MSME sector is critical for achieving sustainable development, but the level of digitalization among MSME has remained extremely low. We have just finished one study on MSME digitalization. Only a small fraction of MSME have digitized, and there are issues related to they don't have the access to information, they don't have required skill, they don't have capital to go digitalize. And then finally, I would briefly would like to mention the impact of technology on job security. We know that over the last 2 decades or so, the nature of job has been changing rapidly, including in India. We are witnessing that technology is reducing the demand for certain kind of skills while increasing the demand for certain kind of skills while reducing the demand for certain kind of skills. And this mismatch does not augur well for the inequality. And there we need a lot of effort to prepare the people to meet the challenge which are coming from the technological side. And at the same time, the nature of job is also changing, because now we are witnessing more and more gig worker coming there. So this whole issue of job security is becoming critical, which requires appropriate policy response to mitigate the negative impact of technology. So these are the 4 points from my side. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much for sharing. And thanks for bringing in the social enterprise angle into the topic. Last but not least, I would like to invite Dr. Rajat Kathuria to give his initial remarks, and then we will continue with the open discussion.
Thank you, Anna. And thank you all the panelists for the great points. And I must say at the outset that I agree with almost everything that has been said. And I was thinking what I would say at the end after 4 speakers have spoken. I'm going to you'll find resonance with what all the speakers on the dais have said. But I also want to bring in a point that I'm working on, which I don't believe myself, but I think it is right. So I'm going to necessarily be provocative, a little bit provocative, and you will understand why. But as I said, I wonder if I believe in what I'm going to say. I think I do, but I'm not so sure. So here goes. Growth, as has been defined in economics and by several people, starting with Nobel laureates like Solow and Lucas, etc., who worked on macro. Growth is basically a sort of outcome of infusion of resources into the economy. You have capital, you have labor. in East Asia, for example, you had women come into the labor force when the men were fully employed, so increased gender participation in labor. But eventually, if you have to grow in a long-term sense, it will have to be through innovation, technological progress, which is the received wisdom, as both KJ and Nagesh said, that growth is a response to innovation, scientific knowledge, etc. Now, as growth becomes sort of important, we had this debate between Bhagwati and Sen in India several years ago about, what should a country put emphasis on. So you're on the one side, you had people like countries like Bhutan who said we'll put emphasis on gross national happiness and not necessarily gross domestic growth. But there were arguments that if you don't grow, you don't have resources for distribution and redistribution, etc. So that's one part of the debate. But growth has to happen through innovation in a long term. But innovation, as KJ was so rightly saying, and Nagesh, that and Pankaj at the end also made this comment, that innovation can be beneficial in a value. It will always be beneficial in terms of GDP, right? I mean, GDP will increase, maybe, and there's a caveat there, but I don't want to get into the technical details. Innovation will increase GDP, but innovation will not necessarily increase welfare. And you can think of environment, and you can think of, I think, arms, ammunitions, production of more tanks, etc., the classical things that have been said in textbooks. So and here's the point I wish to make. But what is, as Pankaj said, what is creating these allocation of resources? What decides who's going to put how much in what industry, in what pursuit? It's the market that decides, right? And as an economist, and here's the provocative part, all of us who've been trained, especially in the United States, and I think a lot of the paradigm of markets developed in the United States, Adam Smith and then Marshall, but we've come to take this as a given, almost as, biblical, that markets are these great creatures or great institutions that lead to, every competitive equilibrium can be described as being welfare enhancing and vice versa. And we take markets as a given. And I think markets fail all the time. And the reason we are in this situation where we talk about sustainable development and technology, markets will fail, as Nagesh spoke about the TRIPS waiver. The market will never allow you to, the pharmaceutical companies in pursuit of profits will never allow you to get to that solution of a TRIPS waiver or peace clause in TRIPS very easily. The resource-intensive development that the United States and Europe and now China is having is largely because of the markets, because markets privilege that kind of development. If India goes that route, I'm afraid the world is going to blow up. If we, consume 13 tons of I was timing myself. Tons of carbon per capita emissions will blow up the world. So what is as I said, I haven't formulated this. I think the problem is markets rewards, or capitalism rewards profits, and profits is blind to sustainability. And I think we need this may sound really odd, we need competition to the market. Where will that come from? I give one example. I mean, government regulation, NGOs, all of that is there, right? But where will this competition from the market come? If you look at DPI, Digital Public Infrastructure, and what is being done by the government of India through the ONDC, maybe one could think of institutions or mechanisms like the ONDC to rein in the market, but the markets are too powerful. I think it will be very difficult to do that. But that's the kind of thought that I had in mind. What is the competition to the market? If everybody develops like Europe and the United States, I'm afraid, as I said, and if Africa, which is going to develop next, market is going to lead us down the sort of realm of completely unsustainable development and probably blow up the world. So I think to a large extent my thesis is that market fail and it's the markets are responsible for where we are today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the great prompt question in the end and the provocation, which dives perfectly deep into what we would like to do next. So I know that we said a lot today, so I don't want to ask you to move too much, but maybe it will be good for you as well. We want to invite you for a group discussion, group of 4 or 5 people, just to turn to each other and have a short conversation about the reflection of what was heard now, but also what are the solutions that you see in your own context and what are basically the potential areas where the life economy could help you and drive this solution. So just the easiest is to turn towards each other, 4 or 5 people. My colleague will pass out a very simple template where you can draft your notes. Please listen with intention, share like concisely so everyone has their time to do so. I also invite the speakers, if they would like to join different groups, so that you can get to know new folks here in the group, because we need to have diverse voices from all angles, and it's nice if you share different group perspectives, if you want, if you're comfortable with, you don't have to. And that applies to everyone. So if you're comfortable, share. If you're not, do not.
If we have questions to the panelists,
Yeah.
when will that come in?
And after the open conversation, the group discussion, we will have a final reflection where we come back here and you can ask questions to the panelists, right? So it's going to be towards the end, and it's going to be more of a reflection and question in the end. So we will have 15 minutes now, not more, to just share with each other and have a short conversation. And then we will come back to the plenary. And I will use that bell that's being passed around now, so you will hear when the time is up, okay? Is everything clear? Is all good? So feel free to move around. I see some people are still alone. If they want to be in a group, just go and find a mate with whom you can talk to, yeah? Good.
Do you know how to do it?
It works very well once you know the technology.
So feel free to join a group if you would like.
No, I think we are happy.
You're happy? Okay. Maybe you can be then one group, I allow it. But it would be nice if you would walk around a little bit.
So they don't do the homework now.
They're doing the homework.
They will ask questions.
Yeah, good.
Surmise. Your study is right.
So in the template there are 2 questions.
Tell me another horrible one. Yeah. Yeah. It's
It was the vested interest. People thereby won't allow any bidding to happen. And then finally, they held on. They
held their resources.
Their resources. And finally, they could auction. And once the government paid, the forest. And even transported out of the
Yeah, exactly. They get it direct. Not some middleman.
There we can put such a thing. I think this is such a first one. What
Second thing we have
this shifting from fuels to electronic vehicles, electric
And when they needed they were with us and fighting.
It looks like a waterfall. I would say it's more philosophical. No, it's a wonderful idea. And I thought it's a good idea. But now the question is moving. And that's a basically only we will be there. More guys will be there. More but it is not Indian innovation, it is Indian innovation. We are adopting it. Here, it is our country.
we have another one of those.
Yeah, I'll do it. So we can have the intelligent knowledge
Please, you go ahead. I was just looking.
that will give sustainable solution.
Do you have any other ideas?
He is a part of the context of they are coming with the question. Questions of the he is a Pushpa. Now he is with he is a chairman. The team chairman is IFS
Oh, yeah. Now we are.
बाद में जब होगा दोबारा चालू करते हैं
London, I'm told, 50s, 60s, and so what is possible to play technology?
solutions are that, unless it has to be multi-pronged.
Yeah.
There has to be emphasis on private transport. Without, taxing private transport, the number of cars in Delhi, the roads have become so wide in Delhi, it's amazing.
Not enough.
But
they are not enough.
They are not enough. Had there been metro, what would happen?
It will never be viable. So they kept delaying until 2003, 2002. Japanese soft loan and all that.
So I think they started just before the Congo became.
Yeah. It started with the first line was in 2003 because Koichi Kato, I hosted a conference of Asian Economic Community in RIA. Koichi Kato, who was LDP Secretary General and Prime Minister, next Prime Minister
To each other, finish the topic. 2 more minutes, and then when we come back and finish together, you can still chat. 5. Yeah. Well, it depends how many questions they have for you as well.
There's nuclear, have great potential, but somehow it is never projected to be more than 7% of everything. So, 7%.
So, and the problem in nuclear is that the civil society gets involved.
Bring Chernobyl, then
Are we discuss these group discussions? Are we going to discuss group discussions? The outcome of discussions?
Popcorn style, so everyone. And we're just gonna. So, do you?
And its neighbor is 70% nuclear. France.
So we're just gonna ask if anyone wants to share. Yeah.
Japan also,
but then what is the alternative? As you said,
storage is the problem. The storage solution
that's a technology.
Yeah, that will take time. They will be there and you will store it.
Coordinating with the others.
Wind could be another.
So they will have questions,
We're just
comments.
gonna ask if there is any outcome they want to share from the conversation, and then if they have any questions.
So we can call so that they can discuss.
Who's going to be the chair of the system?
All right, let's slowly move back for our closing session. One of the panelists would like to use the bell to close the chat. One of you is brave enough to do this with the bell. Like to make them.
ring the bell.
Ring the bell. It's
Shall
gonna,
we do it?
Yeah. Loud.
Still louder. You have to this may break.
No.
Hold it in hand and then hit. But this is it. No.
The other way.
Yeah.
From inside.
Wait.
I think
That is it.
We are getting there. So we are having fun with the bell.
and one more is not in.
Yeah. You only hold it on the bottom because otherwise you will interact with the vibration. Yes. So welcome back, everyone. Now I'm gonna put down this. I hope you had fruitful discussions. We now have about 10 minutes to just hear if you would like to share from your group what are the key reflections and key insights that came out of your conversation. And then afterwards, if you have final questions to the panelists, feel free to ask. But first, I would like to invite you to share your reflections. Go ahead, sir. You can turn on the microphone there. Exactly.
Thank you.
1 second, because he was first,
Okay.
and then you go right away.
Okay, thank you. I think we had very good insights from the panel.
I compliment, but we have had 3 observations. Only that we should do not make it too general. And we have to be specific. Therefore, we should think in terms of a hierarchy of, digital innovations. What is the hierarchy? You can't know all the 10 directions. So, I think initially you can have the top one, the middle one, and the lower one. Then the second thing is that you have to think of some sectors. Our problem is that again we want to do everything and we are not able to do. Therefore, if you do in one sector, you are successful, it will go far and wide. And the third thing, which is very important, is that we become part of networks. You alone can't think there are better people than you, there are more people than you, there are active people. Recognize them. And also, I think, work with them. So, things can become very cheap. And the fourth thing is that demonstrate. People don't go by, what you talk and what you write, I think. They see in action, I think. Does it bear any fruit? That has happened, I think, in China. And they have done very, very small innovations. And fourth, looking, I think, the resource problem, we should think of minor or small innovations, I think. But I think you were telling Anil Gupta. Anil Gupta is a very, very good case, I think. Anil Gupta has gone far and Kanak Sawant was telling, I think. If you see any documentation, I think it's Anil Gupta, national, international journals, he appears. But your labs, I think, 69 labs of CSIR, so many, I think, government organizations, they don't appear anywhere. The question there is that the Big Bang theory will not work in this country. Big Bang will not work because we are not a small country, we are a very big country. Therefore, Big Bang will not work. You have to have small groups and we have to have trust in them that they can do. Create small groups, allow them to function, nurture them, and you get the results. That's what our thought.
Great. Thank you for your feedback. That group over there wanted to share next. Please go ahead.
We have 2 points.
All right. Let us hear.
Right, thank you very much to everybody. Firstly, for forming this unique little group, and thank you to the... can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
All right, I will bend a little lower. So thank you for convening this. Thank you to the panel for providing a beautifully inspiring and provocative baseline for us to talk from, and particularly Rajat, for your provocation at the end that I think spurred something for us particularly. I think firstly, I think we've got to raise our level of ambition, right? Particularly on the innovation and technology side, to a sort of meta level ambition as to how we deal with technology and innovation. I think we looked at, particularly as a group, and this was a very diverse group from all the continents, but one that resonates very much with the, shall I say, local or indigenous and ancient way of doing things, as well as modern technology. So we sense you've got to look at the best of your ancient technologies, of which India is blessed to have, probably one of the best bases for that of any country in the world. Look at those ancient technologies, identify them, whether that's, for example, the way tribals do their farming or health, etc., etc. There's a lot of data that indigenous communities know how to look after life better than the modern ones. And then also stretch that at the opposite end of the polarity to the best of modern technology. And here isn't talking about small technology in the middle. What we're looking at now, seeing now in Silicon Valley, what we can't even see behind the veil of open AI, is a total exponential revolution in exponential technology itself. And you cannot, as you guys were surmising, you cannot rely on the purpose, the process, and the people who are producing that form of technology to uphold your life. It's totally nonsensical. It would be like Krishna and the Vedas 6,000 years ago, or thereabouts, looking across to Europe or America and saying, oh, well, no, we're not going to write this stuff. We're not going to enact our society on this basis. Instead, we're going to listen to the cavemen in Europe. Right? The potential for life, the life is an equivalent. It is a brand new, momentous technology. And our invitation is you grab that with both hands and our feet And we grab it from the people level, right? Communities can really show us the way. From a policy level, i.e. policy can also guide and support, and process. The best of the technologies, ancient and super modern. Thank you.
Just to add to that, I think we also spoke of how the youth, the next generation, if there are 500 million who will be joining the ranks of the middle class in the next few years, how can we motivate them, focus on the 500 million to change their lifestyles so that, you know, we, if we have failed, it doesn't mean that the next generation has to. The people between 18 and 25, if we can change their consumption patterns, maybe we can then move ahead. Second point regarding the countervailing part of markets that we discussed was how people's power and collective action can actually form a counter to the markets. And I mentioned about this Mendalekha experiment in Maharashtra, where the tribals got together to market their own bamboo. The government facilitated the process by giving them ownership rights to the forests, and they harvested the bamboo and sold them in the market for the first time. There were several hurdles, legal as well as from the vested interests, who blocked that sale, who blocked the bidding as well as the transport of bamboo from the village. And yet they succeeded, and that gave power to the people. I think that is a good example of breaking the monopoly of vested interests and the markets which function more for the interests of the few as against the interests of the many. So I think these are two main points. Focus on the younger generation to change their lifestyles. No point asking us to change when we are already set in our ways. Second is develop people's power, which can only be the countervailing power with government facilitation of policies. That can break the stranglehold of markets. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for this beautiful insight.
Can I come in?
Yeah, exactly. We have
Thank
time
you.
for 2 more reflections, and then we have to slowly
Thank you.
close.
It has been a very interesting discussion, and I would like to make a point on this market thing, what Mr. Rajat has said. Well, in economics, by definition, we understand the moment innovation takes place, market is disrupted and market imperfections comes. So new innovations are taking place, monopolies are created, and Schumpeter himself has said this thing, that those monopolies, she has very rightly said this thing, that those monopolies can be challenged only through more innovations. So what I believe is that if we go for innovation, democratization of innovations, unfortunately what has been happening all around the world is that big corporations have been creating more innovations these days rather than innovations coming from grassroots levels. So in India, we have 2 programs. If we can, one startup program is there. In fact, in the Startup India program, the limitation, what I feel is that the innovations are taking place. Unfortunately, there is no mechanism to scale them up or take them forward. So if we can look at that dimensions, and second one is that AICTE in India, it's a body that regulates the technical education. They started a program, I was associated with them. This was Vishwakarma Award. Vishwakarma is basically Indian mythological, the engineer, we can say, who created a lot of engineering things. So Vishwakarma Award was started, and in which all the engineering institutes and technical institutes were invited with their innovations. So best innovations were selected at the national level, and they were also supported through commercializing them. So so my only limited point is that if we can democratize the innovations and make them scalable and take them forward, then a lot of things can be taken care of, the issues, concerns we have been discussing over here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have time for one last reflection. I know that you were next, but I would love to also hear another female voice. And then some questions. Yeah? You give the floor?
Okay.
Thank you. Please
Thank
go
you.
ahead. And then we will go into questions.
Yeah, well, thank you to the panel for setting such a good base for us to really have an interesting discussion. We spoke across a lot of different pathways, and I'll just share what are the key things that came out. So the first thing that we spoke about was looking at the kind of demand and supply mechanisms that are there, which really influence the production and consumption patterns, right? It's one thing to say that, we should consume in a particular way, but is it accessible, is it affordable, is it available, you know? Based on that, can we then look at changing our patterns? Linked to that, we were talking about how innovation doesn't have to be something new, you know, like the group there mentioned, there's a lot of traditional knowledge and traditional methods that can be leveraged and should be, which also borrow from what we consider as hyper-local context, right? In terms of that is what is best in the situations that we are in. Also looking at it from a technology perspective, the innovation ecosystem in India is definitely better than other places, right? Like the concept of digital public infrastructure is something that India introduced to the rest of the world. So there is so much that we can give out in terms of how do you build that knowledge, how do you have open API, all of that. Also looking at, you know, in all of this, what is a just transition? As developing countries, we need to consider how do you bring in these new innovations to replace what are traditional modes of functioning. So for example, if you have coal plants and you're bringing in green technology, you have to consider how do you train the population, how do you ensure the social protection so that, you know, the inequality that exists does not further get exacerbated. And in that context, we were talking about climate resilient agriculture as well, and how you know, there is a need to look at the kind of local context that we function in. So yeah, those were my key points, and if my team wants to add anything else, I will give them the floor. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. So we are now going to close our session, and now it's time for final questions that are in general still in you, or final reflections if are general still in you, either to the panel or overall on the topic. So we can hear one or two more voices before we close this session. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I just had about 3 suggestions to make. One is that, you know, in the early 2000s, I was working with UNIDO, and we were developing a program of cluster development for India. And there were 350 small and medium enterprise clusters identified all over India. Typical are Aligarh for locks, Firozabad for glass, Tirupur for hosiery. Now, at that time, we were looking at interventions to use technology to reduce pollution, basically. We were not looking at the broader picture of making them life compatible. So for example, we did interventions like tanneries in Chennai, chrome recycling, converting foundries and glass industries from coal to gas. So this was a limited focus, and because in UNIDO we were looking at pollution reduction and greening of SME clusters. But now I think this cluster program is an ideal situation for intervention on a broader level to make them life compatible. MSME is already engaged in the cluster program. They have identified these clusters. So the interventions can now range across the entire life economy, including digitalization of business practices. Further, I had worked with a cultural organization, and we have identified about 50 cultural and artisanal industry clusters across the country. Now, they require a different type of intervention in order to survive, because they were in danger of dying out. So that is another kind of industries which could be protected. Now coming to technologies, I had interaction with an organization called Institute of Transformative Technologies based in Oakland, California. They had identified what they call 50 breakthrough technologies for achieving the SDGs. So this is a kind of exercise which we can make use of. Unfortunately, the TFM has not really worked in practice. The only thing that has worked is a smaller limited TFM for the least developed countries. But there are plenty of outfits working in various sectors who are identifying these kind of breakthrough technologies. What we need to do is to disperse them to actual users. And for that, I think one of the things we can think of doing is a digital platform whereby businesses can interact to share technology as well as investment. So that's another thing. Now you talked about IPRs. The old IPR system doesn't work. It didn't work for vaccines. It does not result in lower costs. With Yale University, I have developed a system called the Health Impact Fund.
where the reward given to the investor is based on the impact of the invention. So this is a thing which encourages work on diseases like malaria, neglected diseases, because the impact is huge. So the reward is also huge. A similar kind of IPR mechanism could be used for technology innovation for the SDGs. Because otherwise the traditional IPR system, you will not be able to change it. There is enormous resistance. Hardliner countries like Switzerland oppose anything like this. So the only way is to have an alternative reward mechanism to encourage innovation and come out with technologies which can make a big impact on life. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask the panel if they would like to share reflection back before we close the session. Unfortunately, we will not have time to continue longer, but we are happy to invite you to discuss individually with them. But first, let's hear if the panel would like to reflect on the comments and questions.
Last comment, ma'am.
1 second. No comments from the side? Okay. So go ahead with the last questions, very quick one. Right?
Yes. My opinion is, we had all important points. My point is, to promote sustainable lifestyles, the consumers or the people in daily day-to-day life, they understand sustainability. They are willing to switch over a sustainable lifestyle. But market fails to offer them appropriate products, appropriate technology, appropriate things in place, which is cheaper, affordable, and which they can easily pick up and reduce their carbon, water, and ecological footprint. For that, our market regulators never think about sustainability. On sustainability point of view, there is a need of regulating market as well. And promoting innovative technologies, like previous speaker spoke. Take for example, I am giving a small example. In the morning, when somebody get up from the bed to start the day, needs to brush. In our ancient culture, there were different trees. This thing used to be adopted, but nowadays, even to make it more convenient in the modern age, the bamboo brushes are available with coconut this thing and bamboo this thing, but they are not plentifully available. And it is not, we are reading in the newspaper. And if that kind of brushes would have made available in a very cheaper price or affordable price, then naturally everyone would like to switch over instead of using plastic brushes. So like this, if you see the lifestyle, the kind of the product and process we are adopting in our daily day-to-day life to change our lifestyle habits, we need to orient the market. We need to promote the appropriate products. We have to enhance their scale so that it is available in an affordable price. So the market regulators has to think this aspect seriously, and there could be some sort of regulations promoting such technologies in a large scale will be necessary.
Super, thank you. Thank you very much. And the very last question or comment, and then we close the session.
Just small point is about this technology innovation. I think whatsoever we are having technology innovation is for the only 10% of the people, whether we have satellites or a huge big tech. But what about our majority of the people? They are being excluded unless we consider any technology for the larger section of the society, and that society will become a big gap. The way we are having facing for last so many years about food, and government is quite kind enough to offer another 5 years for 80 crore of people free food. But how long we can sustain? If 80 crore people are not getting food, maybe 100 crores don't have clothes, and 120 crore don't housing. There is an endless problem. So we have to put our technology innovation for the majority of the people, so that everybody is benefited rather than a few people are benefited. We can have ISRO satellites, but about the person who's going in the gutter, for cleaning the gutter. So we should have technology for these type of ordinary people also, so that they are not facing any suicidal and death situations. So we should promote technology for the exclusive majority of the people rather than a minority of the people. Thank you.
Thanks very much for this final enthusiastic feedback. Any comments on that?
So can I just...
We will have to close, unfortunately, the session, so we're just going to hear from the panelists. Yes, go ahead, and then we continue.
When we discuss about this life economy, it means only the appropriate technology. It is not the corporate technology that is available to a few. It means the appropriate technology. So we have to concentrate on the appropriate technology and make it available to all at the cheapest cost.
Thank you.
So this has been, I think, a fascinating discussion, and sort of I've learned a lot from this, and I will pursue some of this. But I have 2 points. One is that in Europe there is a sort of group of people who've been talking about degrowth as a solution for our sort of global problem system. So I'm not advocating, certainly not advocating going down that route for India at all. I mean, degrowth will happen, you know, so it's a nice idea, but it's not pragmatic. But what is pragmatic, I think what was said by the lady there and the gentleman, I think, you know, an old dog cannot learn new tricks. So it will be difficult for us to change the way, but I think nudging the newer, sort of like Greta Thunberg, sort of getting people like that to look at their lifestyles. The West has to also look at its lifestyles. And that's the point we've been making, I think, in India, is that the lifestyles, it's okay to tell India to reduce coal. Yes, and that's fine, but to look at the resource-intensive growth is not fine. I think that becomes a very unequal sort of discussion and a paradigm. And so if India moves or the South moves, the North also has to move. It cannot be a one-way conversation anymore, I think, yeah.
Thank you. Perfect closing for our session.
Let me...
Don't rely on the old dogs.
And don't rely on the old dogs.
Anna?
Perfect.
You may say the final word.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you.
Good. 1 minute each. Yeah, I think I want to take up this point about the local knowledge, indigenous knowledge, and communities-based knowledge. I think there is a lot in India in tribal communities which is very environmental friendly and inclusive and all that. But we need to find a way to standardize it, replicate, so that it can be replicated, scaled up and all that. So some institutional architecture we need to think about, which systematically catalogs about, you know, that knowledge, standardize those practices. I mean, my mind goes to Ayurveda. Why, you know, despite so much of knowledge being there, why always this modern allopathy system wins is because it is not our Ayurveda is, you know, practiced from generations to generation. It has not been standardized and codified. So we need to do some work on that indigenous knowledge to codify it, make it, you know, systematically available to everybody. Everybody, when we say something, it means it is understood in the same manner by everyone. So that standardization work needs to be done.
Life AI. Life AI.
Yes.
I just...
one final. So, yes, of course, there is the traditional knowledge digital library which is doing precisely some of it, of course, Ayurveda. But then we have, apart from Ayurveda, the other tribal health systems. In MP, where I come from, we have such a rich, even Bega, traditional knowledge and all of that. But unfortunately, even now, that is not documented. There are, of course, stray attempts, but it's done in a very piecemeal fashion.
Okay, I just take 1 minute because I expected a question which none of you asked, so I am going to asking you back. Life is wonderful. Life economy is a wonderful articulation.
it's an excellent dream. You know, you from the south, somebody says a conspiratorial theory against the poor, who have never ever seen, many not even used a mobile phone, never sat in an air-conditioned room. Now, you joining with the North, you are trying to force us to belt our belt further. We are already having nothing, and now you are asking us to cut it further. And while you in the North, you are joining with the North, a conspiratorial theory, you are trying to push us still further. We are not raising a left finger against the North, which has done this thing. What will be your answer? Please reflect on that. The many millions you are talking about, the poor, this thing, and you know, of course, you know, this is a question which you can't kind of resolve in 1 hour session. It's a lot of issues involved in that. When I articulate in terms of life-oriented thing, is actually reorienting the whole dimension from a different perspective. But then that will demand supply question. But then the problem is, if somebody asks me, turn me back, okay, life-oriented innovation system, hi, what do you mean? I won't be having an answer. If anybody has an answer, I like it.
Thank you.
Thank you.